Welcome to New Era School Notes for Studies.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into a stack of sources to extract those essential nuggets of knowledge.
And today, we're really getting into it.
We're tackling one of the big ones, Shakespeare's Macbeth.
Yeah.
But we're not just, skimming the surface.
No, this is all about the scenes. We're going scene by scene, really dissecting the architecture of this tragedy.
Exactly. Moment by moment, we've got some fantastic sources, analyses, excerpts, even stuff on its global impact. It's going to be an immersive look at how these specific moments define the whole play.
And what's so striking about Macbeth is how Shakespeare uses that scene structure. It's like he's meticulously building this psychological landscape. It's terrifying, but also deeply human.
So our mission today?
It's really to unearth those key scenes, those moments Macbeth himself calls the be-all and the end-all, the ones that chart his tragic path, and figure out why they still hit so hard centuries later.
It's amazing how potent it still feels, especially considering it's his shortest tragedy.
Right. Often called the Scottish play in theaters. We'll probably touch on why later, but that brevity, it intensifies everything, makes each scene count even more.
So whether you're maybe revisiting this from school or prepping for a discussion, or maybe you're just curious how a play can nail these universal truths so well.
This deep dive should give you some of those aha moments.
Yeah, peeling back the layers on these iconic scenes, seeing the genius behind the lines, and crucially, the structure.
Yeah.
Okay, before we jump into Act 1, it feels important to set the stage right. Understand the world Macbeth came from. It wasn't created in a vacuum.
Not at all. It's so deeply rooted in its time. And you asked how much its power comes from that context. A huge amount, I'd say.
Okay, so walk us through it. We're talking early 1600s.
Exactly, around 1606. This is right after King James took the English throne. He'd been James VI of Scotland, comes down south in 1603.
And he had specific interests that Shakespeare tapped into.
Oh, definitely. James was fascinated by his Scottish background, naturally, but also, and this is crucial for Macbeth, he had this deep, almost obsessive interest in the supernatural. Witchcraft, especially.
Ah, okay, so the witches weren't just a cool theatrical device.
Far from it. Shakespeare, being incredibly savvy, saw an opportunity. He crafts this play that, yes, explores these huge universal themes, ambition, guilt, power, but it also subtly flatters James.
How so?
By focusing on Scottish history, figures supposedly linked to James's own ancestry, and leaning into that supernatural element James was known for. It hits both artistic and, well, political notes. Very clever.
And the timing itself was pretty turbulent, wasn't it? A Scottish king on the English throne was still new.
Very new. There was definitely social anxiety around that adjustment. And then, boom, 1605, you have the failed gunpowder plot.
Right, Guy Fawkes and all that. Still fresh in everyone's memory.
Absolutely. So suddenly, ideas about loyalty, treason, the divine right of kings, they weren't just abstract concepts. They were urgent public concerns. And Macbeth dives right into all of that.
So it felt incredibly relevant to that first audience.
Extremely. Which makes it even more remarkable how Shakespeare packs so much depth into what is, again, his shortest tragedy. It resonated then, and weirdly, it still does.
Okay, so contemporary events are swirling around. But what about the actual story? Where did he get the plot of Macbeth the Man?
The main source is Raphael Holinshed's Chronicles of England, Scotland, and Ireland. That came out in 1577. It gave him the basic story arc.
But Shakespeare wasn't just retelling history.
Not strictly. He took major liberties. The real Macbeth historically ruled Scotland pretty successfully for about 17 years. A stable reign, actually.
17 years. Wow. Shakespeare condenses that massively.
Hugely. He telescopes it into this much shorter, psychologically intense time frame. It ramps up the feeling of this rapid, unstoppable descent into tragedy. Every scene feels urgent, critical.
That compression really gives it that thriller feel, doesn't it? Less history lesson, more psychological nosedive.
Precisely. And there's another fascinating layer, a really subtle link to the gunpowder plot, actually.
Oh.
There was a Jesuit priest, Henry Garnet, executed for his involvement. He was known for arguing for equivocation.
Equivocation, like using ambiguous language to mislead.
Exactly, especially under oath. And Shakespeare puts that idea directly into the Porter scene in Act 2. The Porter talks about an equivocator. It's this subtle nod to contemporary anxieties about deception, political betrayal, woven right into the dialogue of a key scene.
Wow. Okay, and we have to talk about the witches. You mentioned James I's interest.
Yeah.
They must have felt very real to the audience back then.
Absolutely. James actually even wrote a book about witchcraft, demonology, in 1597. So Shakespeare wasn't just inventing spooky characters. He was tapping into genuine, deeply held beliefs.
People really believed witches could influence events, political events even.
Yes. The supernatural wasn't just fantasy. It was seen as a real force that could intervene in human affairs. So those opening scenes with the witches, they would have landed with a real chill, a sense of palpable danger and dark possibility.
Okay, so knowing all this context, the politics, the anxieties, the beliefs, it really makes you appreciate how carefully Shakespeare constructed each scene. It wasn't just random.
Not at all. Every choice, every line seems calibrated to resonate with that specific audience while also hitting these universal notes. It makes the scene-by-scene structure, the way he builds the tragedy, just feel even more masterful.
All right, so we've got the historical backdrop. Now let's talk about the building blocks. How did Shakespeare actually construct this play? It's a tragedy, sure, but the language, the structure, they're key to making those scenes land so powerfully.
Absolutely. Even though it's short, Macbeth is incredibly dense with meaning. And Shakespeare achieves that through, well, a couple of key things. His use of recurring motifs and imagery and the overall tragic structure he employs.
It's like the language itself creates this psychological atmosphere.
Exactly. It's not just telling you the story, it's immersing you in the feeling, the mental state of the characters. He paints with words.
And some of those colors are incredibly striking. The imagery. Let's talk about blood. It feels like it's everywhere.
It really does. Blood imagery just dominates the play. It starts right away with reports from the battle. They talk about a bloody man. And it culminates, chillingly, with Lady Macbeth in Act Vath trying desperately to wash imaginary blood off her hands.
And it changes meaning, doesn't it? It's not just gore.
Right. And initially it can symbolize bravery, wounds honorably gained in battle. But very quickly, especially after Duncan's murder, it becomes the symbol of guilt, corruption, this indelible stain that you just can't get rid of. Every mention deepens that sense of irreversible consequence, scene after scene.
And then sleep, or the lack of it. Macbeth does murder sleep. That line is unforgettable.
It's central to his torment. Literally, he kills Duncan in his sleep, violating that moment of vulnerability. But metaphorically, it's so much bigger. He destroys his own peace of mind.
You can't rest.
He can't. Sleep, which should be restorative, becomes the symbol of the innocence and peace he's lost forever. His sleeplessness, his nightmares, they become a recurring motif across the scenes, showing his mind literally disintegrating.
Another one that always stands out is clothing. The whole borrowed robes idea.
Yes. That's such a brilliant, subtle way Shakespeare shows Macbeth's unease. The honors he gains, especially the kingship, they just don't fit him properly.
Like he's wearing someone else's clothes.
Exactly. The borrowed robes symbolize his illegitimate rule, his deep discomfort in this role he's stolen. It's a visual metaphor for that psychological burden. He never looks comfortable as king, does he? It's like the clothes themselves betray his unease in scene after scene.
It's so effective. And what about child imagery? That feels important too, especially with Banquo's prophecy.
Very important. Child imagery touches on themes of succession, the future, the natural order versus the unnatural disruption Macbeth causes.
Like Banquo being prophesied to father kings, even though he won't be one himself.
Precisely. And that contrasts sharply with Macbeth, who has no heir. Fruitless crown, he calls it. This lack of a natural successor fuels his paranoia, drives him to kill Banquo and his son. It emphasizes the unnaturalness of his reign, disrupting the natural flow of lineage. That theme is woven through many scenes.
Okay, so we have this rich tapestry of imagery. What about the overall shape, the structure of the play? It follows a classic pattern.
It does, very much a classical tragic structure, but Shakespeare infuses it with his signature psychological depth. You have the clear rising action in the first couple of acts.
Starting with the witches.
Exactly. The witches' prophecies kick things off, then Lady Macbeth's influence, Macbeth's internal struggle, culminating in Duncan's murder in Act 2. This whole section builds the tension, sets the stage for everything that follows. Each scene pushes him closer to the edge.
And then comes the fall, the falling action.
Right. From Act 3 onwards, we see the consequences unfold. Macbeth becomes more isolated, more desperate. His power starts to unravel, his mind fragments. Acts 3, 4, and V chart this downward spiral.
It feels inevitable by that point.
It does. The structure reinforces that sense of inevitability. Each scene in the falling action shows another piece crumbling, leading inexorably to the final catastrophe.
Okay, so as we go through the acts now, scene by scene, it's worth keeping these things in mind: the blood, the sleep, the clothes, the children, and that rising and falling structure.
Definitely. There are like threads weaving through the whole play, giving deeper meaning to the soliloquies, the actions, everything. It's how Shakespeare builds this incredibly textured and resonant world, scene by careful scene.
All right, this is it. The deep dive into the scenes themselves. Let's walk through the play, act by act, spotlighting those moments that really map out Macbeth's journey from noble warrior to, well, bloody tyrant.
Let's start at the beginning. Act 1. Seeds of ambition, the incubation of evil. This act does so much groundwork. It sets that eerie, supernatural mood and introduces that core theme: appearance versus reality. Fair is foul, and foul is fair.
And it opens with maybe the most famous opening lines in Shakespeare. When shall we three meet again?
Instantly unsettling. That uncertainty, that hint of malevolence from the witches, it just casts this shadow over everything that comes after. But the scene we absolutely have to unpack in Act 2 is Macbeth's first big soliloquy.
Ah, yes. Act I, Scene 7. This is where he's actually debating killing Duncan. It's huge.
It's pivotal because it shows us he's not inherently evil. He's aware of the morality, the consequences. He says, if it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. He wishes he could just do the deed and have it be over, without repercussions.
But he knows he can't.
He knows. He worries about judgment here on earth and jumping the life to come. The language itself, it's tortured, convoluted. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence and catch with his surcease success, it mirrors his own twisted mental state.
And that phrase, this bank and shoal of time, what's that really getting at?
It's this powerful metaphor for life being precarious, temporary, like a narrow sandbank in the vast ocean of eternity. He understands the stakes, both mortal and immortal. He's weighing the clown against his soul.
So he's genuinely conflicted. But then Lady Macbeth enters the scene.
And she changes everything. The scene perfectly shows their initial dynamic. He hesitates. She attacks his manhood. Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? She scorns him. She questions his courage, his love for her.
It's brutal manipulation.
It is, and it works. She pushes him past his moral doubts, seals their deadly pact. It's a chilling display of ambition and psychological pressure.
So the insight here is crucial. Macbeth starts with a conscience. This scene shows the process of corruption beginning, heavily influenced by external pressure as well as internal ambition.
Exactly. Which leads us right into Act 2, the point of no return, the irreversible act. This is where the deed happens, Duncan's murder. It's the moral pivot point of the whole play.
And leading up to it, we get that absolutely chilling dagger soliloquy. Act 2, Scene 1. Is he hallucinating?
That's the terrifying question. Is this a dagger which I see before me? The handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. He tries to grab it, but can't. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still.
It feels like his guilt is already manifesting physically.
Or his murderous intent is taking shape. Is it a fatal vision sent to tempt him, or just a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from the heat-oppressed brain? It exists in this bizarre space between reality and hallucination.
It perfectly captures his mental state on the brink.
It really does. It embodies that link between the inner turmoil and the external world that the play explores so well. It's a vision of his damnation, really.
What?
A window into a mind cracking under pressure.
And then right after the intense horror of the murder itself, Shakespeare throws in the porter scene. Act 2, Scene 3. Seems like odd timing for comedy.
It does seem like comic relief on the surface, yeah. The drunken porter stumbling around making jokes. But it's doing something much deeper thematically.
What's that?
He's pretending to be the gatekeeper of hell. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there in the name of Beelzebub? And he talks about an equivocator, linking back to that deception theme.
So it's not just random jokes.
Not at all. It transforms Macbeth's castle, the scene of the regicide, into a literal hellgate. It underscores the damnation Macbeth has just brought upon himself. It's dark comedy that actually reinforces the horror.
So the insight from Act 2, transgression, has immediate psychological consequences,
Yes.
the dagger, and spiritual ones, the hellgate. The act itself shatters both internal and external order.
Precisely. And that shattering continues into Act 3. The corruption spreads, the tyrant emerges. This is where we see Macbeth change. The hesitation is gone. He's becoming ruthless.
He decides to kill Banquo, his friend. That feels like a significant step down.
It is. It shows how the first crime makes the next ones easier, almost necessary in his mind. He's not just ambitious now, he's paranoid. He needs to secure his position.
And it's all driven by fear of Banquo's prophecy.
Exactly. In Act 3, Scene 1, he lays it out. To be thus is nothing, but to be safely thus. Being king isn't enough. He needs to be secure. Our fears in Banquo stick deep. He recognizes Banquo's inherent nobility, and it scares him.
So he plots Banquo's murder with chilling calculation. A real shift from the agonized debate over killing Duncan.
A huge shift, and that paranoia, that guilt, explodes publicly in the banquet scene. Act 3, Scene 4. This is a masterpiece of psychological horror on stage.
Banquo's ghost appears, but only Macbeth sees him.
Only Macbeth. Which makes it even more terrifying for him and more revealing for us. His guilt literally takes a seat at the table, disrupting his attempt to play the gracious king. It's a total public meltdown.
And Lady Macbeth tries to cover for him.
Desperately. Sit, worthy friends. My lord is often thus. But you see the cracks forming in their partnership here. She's losing control of him and the situation. Her composure is starting to fray.
Insight for Act 3. The initial crime breeds more violence, driven by paranoia. And guilt isn't just internal. It can manifest, haunt you, isolate you even in a crowd. The unraveling is accelerating.
Which brings us to Act 4, deepening despair, false security, and growing opposition. Here, Macbeth seems almost desperate. He goes back to the witches, seeking reassurance, but his moral compass is basically gone.
He wants guarantees. He needs to feel safe.
He does. And the witches deliver in the apparitions scene, Act 4, Scene 1, but their reassurance is treacherous.
These are the famous prophecies, right? Beware Macduff.
Right. First, an armed head says, beware Macduff. Then, a bloody child. None of woman born shall harm Macbeth.
Sounds pretty foolproof.
Yeah, who isn't born of woman?
Exactly. And finally, a crowned child with a tree. Macbeth won't be beaten until Birnam Wood physically moved to Dunsinane Hill. Seems impossible.
So Macbeth feels invincible, but it's all wordplay.
It's deadly equivocation. The prophecies sound like guarantees, but they actually spell out the precise means of his destruction. He hears what he wants to hear, blinded by arrogance.
The irony is crushing. His confidence becomes his undoing.
Utterly. It's a chilling lesson in the danger of false security, of believing comforting lies. Meanwhile, as Macbeth sinks deeper, the forces of good are starting to gather.
This is where Malcolm tests Macduff. Act 4, Scene 3. Yes, a long but crucial scene. Malcolm pretends to be even worse than Macbeth to test Macduff's loyalty to Scotland, not just to a potential king. It shows Malcolm's wisdom, his caution, a stark contrast to Macbeth's impulsive tyranny.
It establishes Malcolm as the legitimate alternative.
And it builds the tension for the final conflict. It gives you hope that order can be restored.
Insight for Act 4. Beware of easy answers and false confidence. Deception can wear the mask of reassurance. And while tyranny isolates, true leadership builds alliances based on integrity.
And so we arrive at the climax. Act V nemesis and isolation, the inevitable conclusion. Everything comes crashing down. The psychological toll becomes unbearable.
Starting with Lady Macbeth, her sleepwalking scene is just harrowing. Act V, Scene 1.
One of the most powerful scenes Shakespeare ever wrote. Out, damn spot. Out, I say. She's reliving the horror, tormented by guilt. Her speech is fragmented, jumping between the past crimes and her present nightmare. Yet who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in him?
That steely resolve she had in Act 80 is completely shattered.
Utterly broken. It's the brutal depiction of a mind consumed by guilt. It shows the price of being human, as Judi Dench put it. The conscience can't be suppressed forever.
It's visually and audibly devastating.
Yeah.
And then Macbeth here, she's dead.
And he responds with arguably the most famous speech in the play, maybe in all of Shakespeare. The tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow soliloquy. Act V, Scene 5.
It's just bleak.
Yeah.
Utter despair.
Pure nihilism. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. Life for him has become meaningless, a repetitive, pointless crawl towards death.
Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more.
Exactly. That theatrical metaphor is stunning. Life is brief, noisy, full of passion, sound, and fury, but ultimately empty, signifying nothing. It's the cry of a man who has destroyed everything, including his own soul, and found nothing left.
And even then, he clings to the witch's prophecies.
Right to the bitter end. Even as Birnam Wood literally starts moving towards Dunsinane, Malcolm's soldiers using branches as camouflage, even as he faces Macduff.
And then the final twist. Macduff reveals he wasn't technically born of woman.
Macduff was from his mother's womb, untimely ripped, a cesarean birth. The final prophecy collapses. Macbeth realizes he's been tricked by equivocation.
And Macduff kills him. Justice is served, order restored.
The natural order prevails, but the cost has been immense.
Insight for Act V. The consequences are inescapable. Guilt can destroy even the strongest will. And a life built on violence and lies ultimately leads to despair and meaninglessness. It's a devastating conclusion. Okay, we've walked through that incredible arc, scene by scene. But the story doesn't end on the page, does it? These scenes, these characters, they've lived on for centuries, all over the world.
Absolutely. The play's impact is phenomenal. And it's funny, you can't even talk about performing Macbeth without bumping into the superstition.
Ah, right, the Scottish play thing. You really can't say Macbeth in a theater. Is that true?
Well, traditionally, yes. Actors are famously superstitious about it, saying the name is supposed to bring bad luck, accidents, disasters during the production.
So what do you do if you slip up? I've heard there's a ritual.
Oh yeah, it's quite specific. You have to leave the theater building, turn around 3 times, smit, say a curse or swear word, then quote a line from Hamlet, often, "Angels and ministers of grace defend us," then knock to be let back in.
Wow, that's elaborate. Where did that even come from?
The origins are murky. Some say there were real accidents in early productions, maybe involving stage combat. Others think it's just part of the play's dark aura, its association with witchcraft and bad omens. But whatever the reason, the superstition persists. It adds to the play's mystique.
It definitely does. And beyond the superstition, there have been some truly legendary stage productions that really defined how we see these scenes.
For sure. You think about Laurence Olivier in 1955. His production was known for its raw psychological intensity. He played Macbeth less as a villain from the start and more as a great warrior corrupted and destroyed by ambition. It brought out that tragic hero element we see struggling in the early scenes.
And the Ian McKellen and Judi Dench version is iconic too, right?
Yes,
The 70s.
legendary. They did it at the RSC in a tiny studio space, a black box theater. It created this incredibly claustrophobic, intense atmosphere, perfect for emphasizing the psychological turmoil, the guilt, the paranoia that we see in scenes like The Banquet or the Dagger soliloquy. Their performances focused right in on that inner disintegration. It was apparently breathtaking.
And Macbeth has had such a huge life on film too. Adapting these scenes for the screen opens up different possibilities.
It really does. Think way back to Orson Welles' Voodoo Macbeth in 1936. An all-black cast set in Haiti, turning the witches into voodoo priestesses. Hugely innovative for its time, providing roles for black actors and showing how universal these themes of power and superstition are. It proved the story could be transplanted and still resonate powerfully.
That sounds amazing. And Kurosawa's version, Throne of Blood.
Oh, Akira Kurosawa's Throne of Blood in 1957 is just a masterpiece. He moved the story to feudal Japan. The way he visually translated the scenes, the forest, the apparitions, the final battle with arrows, it's stunning. He tapped into Japanese ideas of honor, fate, and ambition, creating arguably one of the greatest Shakespeare films ever made.
Then there was Polanski's version in the 70s. That one was known for being quite dark, quite violent.
Roman Polanski's Macbeth, 1971. Yeah, it was incredibly graphic for its time, very psychologically harrowing. It was made after his wife Sharon Tate was murdered, and you can feel that sense of senseless violence, that bleakness permeating the film. It added another layer of darkness to the play's exploration of ambition's brutal consequences.
And more recently, Joel Coen's The Tragedy of Macbeth.
With Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand, yeah. Visually stark, black and white, very expressionistic. It really highlighted the theatricality, the psychological intensity, proving again how adaptable these scenes are, how they continue to speak to contemporary filmmakers and audiences.
It's incredible how the story keeps being reimagined. Has it traveled much beyond Western stages and screens?
Absolutely. Ninagawa Yukio did famous Japanese productions incorporating traditional elements like No and Kabuki theater, visually spectacular. And there have been numerous African adaptations, setting the play in different political contexts, exploring themes like colonialism, power struggles, corruption, making it resonate strongly with post-colonial experiences.
It just goes to show those core scenes we analyze, the ambition, the guilt, the downfall, they speak a universal language. Doesn't matter the setting.
Exactly. Shakespeare nailed something fundamental about the human condition, and these scenes are the proof.
So we've looked at the text, the history, the global interpretations. But what about the people who actually have to be Macbeth or Lady Macbeth, stepping into those roles, living through those intense scenes night after night? That must be incredibly challenging.
Oh, profoundly so. And hearing from actors gives you this amazing insight into the emotional core of the play. Take Ian McKellen, for instance. He talked about the challenge of playing Macbeth.
What was his perspective?
He emphasized finding Macbeth's humanity. He said something like, he's not a monster from the beginning, he becomes one. That journey is what makes the role so compelling and so terrifying.
That links right back to our discussion of Act 1, Scene 7, that initial hesitation. An actor has to chart that whole descent we see unfolding scene by scene.
Precisely. They have to embody that moral struggle, that gradual erosion. And then you have Judi Dench on Lady Macbeth. Her insights are just as powerful, especially thinking about that sleepwalking scene in Act V.
She was incredible in that role. What did she say about Lady Macbeth's breakdown?
She saw it not as weakness, but as the inevitable consequence of denying her own humanity. She said something like, she thinks she can control everything, including her own conscience. Her breakdown isn't weakness, it's the price of being human.
Wow. That frames the sleepwalking scene, Act V, Scene 1, perfectly. It's the return of the repressed guilt she tried so hard to bury.
Exactly. Dench understood that the steeliness had to crack eventually, that the human cost of those actions was inescapable. And more recently, Denzel Washington, talking about his film role.
He focused on the theme of power, right?
Yeah, he put it very bluntly. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's as true today as it was in Shakespeare's time. It shows how actors connect these centuries-old characters and scenes to timeless, universal truths.
They find the modern resonance within the historical text.
They have to make it real. Hearing them talk about it, you really grasp the emotional and psychological weight of these scenes. It's not just lines on a page. It's about embodying ambition, guilt, despair.
It reminds you that these characters, however extreme, reflect aspects of our own human potential, for good and for ill. The actors bring that vulnerability, that terror, right to the surface. Okay, so we've dissected the scenes, looked at global stages, heard from the actors, but let's bring it home. Why Macbeth? Why now? Why does this play, centuries old, still feel so relevant? What does it offer you listening today?
I think it endures because the core themes, the ones explored so powerfully in these key scenes, are just fundamentally human and timeless. First off, the corrupting nature of power. We see it so clearly in Macbeth's journey after killing Duncan in Act 2, spiraling through Act 3. That's eternally relevant, isn't it? In politics and business, anywhere there's authority.
Absolutely. And the psychology of guilt. That feels incredibly universal.
Totally. Macbeth's visions, the dagger, Banquo's ghost, Lady Macbeth sleepwalking. These are profound depictions of conscience tormenting the mind. It resonates because we all understand regret, anxiety, the weight of our actions. Shakespeare just nails it.
And the central conflict.
Yeah.
Ambition versus morality. That's the engine of the whole play, right, from Act 1.
It is. How far would you go? What lines would you cross? These are basic ethical questions we still grapple with constantly. And finally, the idea of consequences for betraying the natural order, the chaos that follows Duncan's murder, the unnatural storms, the eventual restoration of order in Act V. It speaks to a deep-seated need for justice and balance in the world.
So the themes are timeless. But the play itself, as a piece of writing, is also incredibly valuable, isn't it? Especially for learning.
Oh, definitely. The symbolism and imagery, we talked about blood, sleep, clothes, they make it so rich for analysis, for unpacking complex ideas. The character development is masterful. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are incredibly complex psychological studies.
And the language itself.
Some of the most powerful poetic language ever written.
Yeah.
Studying Macbeth is an incredible way to engage with sophisticated language, complex syntax, and just sheer verbal brilliance. It stretches your mind.
Now, our sources mentioned its specific relevance in places like Malawi. How does a 400-year-old Scottish play connect so strongly there?
It's a really powerful example of the play's adaptability. In Malawi, the political resonance is huge. Themes of political corruption, illegitimate leaders, the abuse of power, these connect directly to contemporary challenges and historical experiences there. Comparing Duncan's good kingship to Macbeth's tyranny provides a framework for discussing leadership and democracy.
So it becomes a tool for political discussion almost.
In a way, yes. And the cultural connections are fascinating too. The supernatural elements, the witches, the prophecies, they resonate strongly with traditional spiritual beliefs present in Malawi and other African cultures. It makes the play feel less foreign, more connected to local ways of understanding the world, like the intersection of spiritual forces and power.
That makes sense. What about social themes like Lady Macbeth?
her role, her ambition, her manipulation of gender norms, and then her breakdown that sparks vital social commentary and discussion about gender roles, women in power, societal expectations, which are relevant everywhere, including Malawi today.
And beyond Malawi, are there other contemporary echoes?
Loads. Think about environmental disruption mirroring the unnatural events in the play, or economic inequality linked to power abuse, the importance of legitimate succession versus chaotic power grabs, even the role of rumor and prophecy in modern political movements. The parallels are everywhere if you look.
So it's clear, Macbeth isn't just some dusty classic, it's alive. Every scene, every struggle holds up a mirror to our own time, asking us tough questions about power, morality, and the choices we make.
It really does. It invites you to think critically, not just about the play, but about the world around you. #tag7, outro.
Wow. What a journey through the scenes of Macbeth, from the witches on the heath to that final, bleak tomorrow speech. It's just extraordinary.
It really is. We've seen how Shakespeare built this incredible structure, combining history, psychology, politics, morality, all packed into these intense, unforgettable scenes.
It endures, doesn't it?
It endures because it taps into something fundamental about being human: power, guilt, ambition, fear. These things don't change. Macbeth keeps challenging us, offering insights not just into literature, but into ourselves and our societies. Those supernatural elements, far from dating it, actually connect to deep-seated human ways of thinking about fate and consequence. It's a masterpiece that keeps on giving.
It truly is. So here's a final thought to leave you with, inspired by Macbeth's own words. If life's but a walking shadow, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing, what does give our lives substance?
And how did the choices we make in the everyday scenes of our own lives impact not just us, but the wider world? How do they shape the stage we all share?
Maybe revisiting Macbeth after this, focusing on those key scenes, will offer some fresh perspectives, whether you read it or watch a production.
You might just see the play and perhaps the world a little differently.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and follow. We are also on Facebook and TikTok. Just scan the QR. This is Victoria signing out.